So I went to see two movies this week, and both of them were quite weird, but in quite different ways. So welcome to another movie review video. Welcome back, or if you are new here, welcome. My name is Katrina and I make bookish content here on this channel every week, apart from this last week. And then movie reviews here at the weekend, apart from this last week. In the description box below, you will find all of my social links, including my blog and my Goodreads, where I try and review most of the things that I read, except for this last week. And I will leave my movie review playlist linked up above, which does include my top 10 movies of 2021. So if you haven't seen that one yet, make sure you go ahead and watch that one. Yes, I am back in the cinemas watching things. I have seen a couple of things in the cinemas since the start of the new year. However, they were rewatches. Yes, I did just basically go and see Spider-Man again and again. But it's amazing. So if you haven't seen that spoiler-free review, I will leave that linked up above. I have seen it now in Dolby, IMAX and iSense, and should probably just go and watch it on a regular screen. But we're not going to talk about this weird background behind me. We're going to be switching backgrounds. If you follow all my videos here on the channel, we're just going to be switching back and forth, and this is a very temporary background. It is January in the UK, so it's dull anyway, so we may as well film with just like lights on and that's it. But yes, I saw two films in cinemas this week. I saw Clifford the Big Red Dog and I saw Licorice Pizza. I'm not sure how they're pronouncing that one. It's spelt without the Q, it's spelt just with the C. So does that make it Licorice Pizza? Yeah, so let's talk about Clifford the Big Red Dog. This wouldn't have been like one of my top tier watches. The fact that I watched it on the 14th of January rather than when it came out over Christmas tells you that. And from the trailer, I was a bit like, oh, this film could be really, really bad. However, I like a family film. I really, really enjoy watching family films. I'm a big Disney fan, as you know, if you've been following the channel for a while. And so I wanted to go and see this one. I also was really intrigued to see Jack Whitehall's American accent. Now, that was the big thing that really bugged me throughout the whole film. So we have our main character, Emily Elizabeth. She is a 12-year-old living in New York. She's just gone to start at an elite school, so her mother wants her to have the best education. She's not really fitting in, and that's where Clifford fits in. However, Emily Elizabeth's mum is English, and John Cleese is in this film, and he plays a guy who is English. So why we had to have Jack Whitehall there with an American accent, I'm really not sure. Why could we just not have let him have his own accent, and then it would have taken one less thing away from the film to think like, oh, he explains it, the fact that they moved to New York when he was 2, so he grew up with a New York accent. Again, there was not really any evidence of a New York accent. And in an interview with, who was he having an interview with? Was he having an interview with, was it like Jimmy Fallon or was it Graham Norton? I can't remember, but I watched an interview with him where he says he doesn't pick one accent. He literally takes you on a tour of all 50 states. And it's very true. And then occasionally he'll say things that just sound plain English. And he does an impersonation. I'm using air quotes so much in this video. He does an impersonation of somebody with a British accent as well in the film. I'm like, why could we not have just let him have a British accent? Because other characters in the film are allowed their own accents. It just really, really bugged me, and I couldn't stop thinking about it the entire way through the film. Then there's the fact that obviously his acting is pretty hammy, but it's a kids' film, so you can get away from it. But then there are points throughout the film where there are just things that happen and scenes that happen and interactions between characters that happen that don't move the plot forward, aren't particularly funny. It's just like they had to go, oh, we need to get a shot of this block in Manhattan, or oh, we need to get a shot where they're doing this activity because we've been sponsored by it or something like that. And it just was quite jarring and really didn't fit with things that happen. The whole thing, now, I did think about doing this as a book versus movie, but then I haven't been reading very much as of late. But yeah, obviously it's based off a beloved series of kids' books. I think Clifford the Big Red Dog has more than one book. And so I was, ready for it to be Paddington-esque, ready for it to be like Peter Rabbit-esque, but it's just kind of out there doing its own thing. And I was in a cinema in a theatre full of children because it was a Saturday morning, and yeah, there wasn't an awful lot of laughing. There really wasn't an awful lot of laughing. They talk, Jack Whitehall talked in the interview about, sorry, I do have a creaky chair that I'm sitting on. Jack Whitehall talks in the interview about the CGI and how good the CGI guys were and how interesting it was sort of acting towards these CGI standing head things for Clifford's head. And I'm like, yeah, but the CGI really wasn't that good. There are scenes where Emily Elizabeth is riding Clifford, and I just feel like there are computer games that I have played, and I'm not a gamer. I have not played games recently. There are computer games that I have played where the human characters and the animal characters look more real than these ones did. It was not great. I wanted to see the story through. I wanted to find out sort of what happened in the end. Not because I cared, just because I wanted to see what was going to happen next. And so I did stay for the duration of the film. John Cleese's character, again, was really sort of hammed up. And so the actress who plays Emily Elizabeth, who I have seen in quite a few other things and enjoyed her in other things, she actually did a really good job sort of holding the film together whilst those around her were just doing the most exaggerated, like, all the time. Her acting was the most natural acting, and even then, the pacing was just really weird, and there was stuff in there that just felt like it was there for the sake of being there. Obviously, I watched the entire thing through. I didn't walk out, but should you pay your cinema money to go and see this? Absolutely not. Even if you have kids and you want to get them out of the house, absolutely not. Take them to go and see something else. On Saturdays, there was other things playing. I mean, I walked out of Boss Baby 2, and I maybe would have recommended that over Clifford. I wasn't a massive fan of Addams Family 2, but that was playing as well. Go and see that, or just, get up some classic Disney Plus and do that instead, because yes, would not recommend this one. And then we have Licorice Pizza. I wonder if I'm the only person that's done these two as a double header on a Saturday afternoon. Well, Clifford was in the morning, Licorice Pizza was in the afternoon. This one I watched the I didn't watch the whole trailer for it. I just sort of saw it advertised, like, that is a very me film. It's got an indie feel about it. It's a little bit weird. It's a little bit out there. It's set in the 70s. It involves friendship, a former child actor, and sort of wanting to sort of better yourself and make the best of a situation. But there were so many parts of it that were just really weird. However, again, interesting, the dynamic of the cinema. In my first film, I was there as the only sort of lone adult amongst parents with their children, or adults with children that they'd taken to go and see it. And yet in Licorice Pizza, I was very much the majority, in that I was a single cinema goer going to see this film, a single adult cinema goer going to see this film. And the majority of the other people in there were single people watching this film. And people did laugh, and I laughed. And so the fact that, we're meant to have this other family comedy and there was not really anybody laughing, including the kids, and yet this other one is this kind of like quirky, I don't know if it's being marketed as a comedy or a dramedy, coming of age type of film. And we did laugh at that. There was some funny moments, and there was some random cameos in there that I had no idea they were happening because I hadn't watched the entire trailer. So that was interesting. There are some surprisingly big names just kind of pop up throughout the course of this film. But the majority of the film focuses on Gary and Alana. Gary is 15, a former child star, and is kind of still doing things off the back of that, but also trying to take his acting money and put it into businesses and invest in things. So he has a PR company, he buys a waterbed company, it's all a bit strange. And then the oil crisis comes along, and Alana forms this friendship with him because she is working for the company that is taking his school photographs when he's at school, and so they form this friendship. He then needs her to be a chaperone on a trip that he needs to do as his like former child actor job. And that his mum can't go with him, basically. So she accompanies him, and their friendship is born. Alana is 25 and Gary is 15. And that's weird in itself. But the fact that she then sits down at one point in the film and goes, is it weird that I hang around with Gary and all his 15-year-old friends? And her sister sort of says, well, if you're asking that question out loud, I think you already know the answer to it. And we're all sitting there going, yeah, it's weird. It's an unlikely friendship, and I get that they're trying to tell the story of this unlikely friendship, and I like the fact that they've kind of banded together and formed this sort of camaraderie, and Gary's trying to help her out and she's trying to help him out, and that's really sweet and really pure. But then there's this kind of like romantic tension with them all the time, and Gary being a 15-year-old boy, I mean, he is a tall and broad and adult looking 15-year-old boy. You keep sort of having to remind yourself throughout the film that he is only 15. But him being a 15-year-old boy has the kind of stereotypical brain of a 15-year-old boy, in that they're wanting to kind of like branch out and experiment with sex and romance and nudity and kissing and everything. And there's sort of one point where there could have been a really awkward non-consensual moment, and it's done really well in the film, and I really liked the fact that it was done in the way it was in the film, because he sort of checks himself and goes, no, this is not something that should be happening right now. And I did like that bit. But at the same time, this friendship of them helping each other, almost a cross-generational thing, because there is 10 years between them, that should be really nice and pure, is still like, well, if they sleep together, it's statutory rape. Is them being slightly romantically linked, is that still like, you're kind of it's just a bit weird and a bit ick, and at the same time you're like, oh, but a friendship between them is really quite nice and pure, because they are helping each other out, they are sort of helping each other for the sake of helping each other. And there are other moments in the film that are really funny, and there are other moments in the film that are just like great moments of cinema. I also really liked the sort of lighting and the cinematography in this film. It's another one of those where I noticed that, which is it's a big thing. There were some nice sort of shadowy effects. There were some nice golden hour type of lighting, and yet overall, when we got to the end of the film, I was like, that's still a bit like and again, I don't think it's just me with my sort of teacher head on. I have heard other people saying the same thing. And so this film was weird in a different way. It did make me laugh, and there were definitely things I liked about it. I liked the quirkiness about it. I liked the weirdness about it. But then there was this umbrella thing of this like underlying romance between a 25-year-old woman and a 15-year-old boy. And that was just, again, so should you pay your cinema going money to go and see this one? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know that I can say yes. But at the same time, it's getting a lot of hype around it. Maybe you need to go and see it and see for yourself. Please let me know in comments if you have seen either of these two films, if you share my opinions on this one. I am definitely considering going to see the new Scream film. I do like a horror film, so let me know if that's something you'd be interested in me reviewing here on this channel. And all being well, I am going to see a Limitless screening of something, an early screening of it, so I will have that review up for you next weekend. So make sure you are subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on that. I have 2 bookish videos coming your way this week to make up for the fact that I had 0 bookish videos last week. So again, you're not going to want to miss out on those ones. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If there is anything else that you would like me to go and watch at the cinema and bring my review to you here next week, then do let me know, as always, in comments. Minor apologies for my minor absence, and yeah, I will be back with another review definitely for you next week, so I will see you then. Thanks for watching.